top story, the sudden and new chapter for Syria in a moment, but we begin with breaking news. A woman is dead after a shooting in Toronto. Police giving details from the scene just a short time ago.
Officers located a female in her 30s that had a gunshot wound, and they immediately started life-saving measures. Officers also located and arrested a male in his 20s and recovered a firearm. The female victim was transported to a local trauma center, but unfortunately she succumbed to her injuries and was pronounced deceased.
Police saying they are in the process of notifying next of kin, adding there will be extra officers in the area as they investigate. Police would not provide any details on what led up to the shooting or if the suspect and victim knew each other. As you can imagine, the investigation is just beginning. Anyone with information is asked to contact 55 Division or Crime Stoppers. Syrians around the world, including here in our province, celebrating in the streets after the Assad regime collapsed, ending decades of what Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called today brutal oppression. The rebels greeted as heroes in the capital. We'll have more on what's happening on the ground in Syria in a moment, including what potentially could come next. But first, here's Brittany Billette with how Ontario's Syrian community is reacting to this major news.
Amir Fattel says he's been glued to the TV for the last week and a half, running on just a few hours of sleep every day.
I feel like I'm in the dream. I couldn't believe that. Today I woke up and as a Syrian, I feel like I'm free.
Fattel, his wife and daughter fled Syria not long after the start of the civil war and settled in Canada in 2016. Now he lives in Oakville, Ontario, a world away from his hometown Aleppo, where just over a week ago, rebels drove out government forces before making their way to the capital.
Me personally, I didn't expect the Assad regime will be removed and kicked out from our country, and suddenly we wake up today and we see, the Syria without the Assad regime, which is great.
Early Sunday, the Syrian government collapsed. The rebels' lightning-fast campaign ended President Bashar al-Assad's autocratic rule and almost 14 years of civil war. In Mississauga overnight, a group of people came together to rejoice. By Sunday afternoon, the excitement only grew, with hundreds of people filling up Celebration Square, all gathered to mark the end of the Assad family's violent dynasty.
We're honestly filled with excitement, happiness. We've been waiting for this day for over half of a century.
That regime, the dictatorship, has caused us to fight each other. And now it was the time to come together and rebuild and fix all the mistakes that we have caused in the past, and now I think we succeed.
Some analysts say what happens next in Syria largely depends on the rebels' leader, Abu Muhammad al-Jalani.
His task is immense because it is a hugely divided country, Alawite versus Sunni, pro-Assad versus anti-Assad, all the scars of what's had been 14 years of civil war. It's a new chapter, that's a fact. What sort of chapter, whether this is a happy ending or a horror story, a new horror story, remains to be seen.
Fattel says despite having concerns about who will rule Syria next and how, he's hopeful and wants to play a role in the country's future.
I hope to see a free country with democratic, system. I will not forget I'm a Syrian and I wanted to do something to my country, at least to help them, to rebuild again.
That's something, he says, that wouldn't be possible without the safety, knowledge, and experience he found in Canada. Brittany Billette, CBC News, Oakville.
Well, let's take you now to Syria. CBC's senior international correspondent, Margaret Evans, is in neighboring Lebanon and tracking the very latest for us.
This is Syria at the turning of the page, the past in flames and a new hope rising. As news spread that Bashar al-Assad had fled the country, people took to the streets in jubilation. After all the years of dictatorship we've lived through, we were in prison, says this man, and now we're out and at the moment where we're going to build the greatest Syria. That's what this man is promising them, arriving in Damascus to speak at the Great Mosque, The main rebel leader, Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, an Islamist who marshaled disparate rebel factions to end more than 50 years of brutal dictatorship under the al-Assad family. He called the feat a turning point for the region. He also promised healing for a country soaked in loss. This woman says 13 years of al-Assad's repression has cost her dearly.
My cousin, my son, my family, all of them.
The rebels arriving in Damascus freed some of the prisoners from the Sadnaya prison, as they've done in other cities. Al-Assad's jails, black holes of torture and death, into which the regime's opponents often disappeared. Elsewhere in the city, there was looting, some residents finding themselves in the presidential palace, helping themselves to a few souvenirs. The former Prime Minister Mohammed Ghazi al-Jalali, who said he wouldn't leave the capital, has been designated as a transitional figure by the rebels, clearly eager to present themselves as a group with a plan, also aimed at calming regional concerns. Those celebrating the demise of the al-Assad regime weren't confined to Syria. These were the scenes in neighboring Lebanon, the border crammed with Syrians eager to return home after years of exile. Mohammed Sharia hasn't seen his family since fleeing the country 8 years ago. He says all Syrians will now be safe because the one who threatened them is gone. Margaret Evans, CBC News, at the Lebanon-Syria border.
In the U.S., Donald Trump is standing by his tariff threats. In his first network TV interview since winning the Oval Office, the president-elect signaled they are coming. Katie Simpson on the headlines Trump is making and what he has to say about this country.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's quick visit to Mar-a-Lago. We've heard plenty about it from the Canadian perspective. Now, President-elect Donald Trump is offering his version of how it all came together.
I spoke with Justin Trudeau. In fact, he flew to Mar-a-Lago within about 15 seconds after the call ended.
In this sit-down interview with NBC News, Trump reaffirmed his commitment to tariffs, sharing what he says he told the Prime Minister.
I said you have to close up your borders because they're coming in the northern border, too, a lot. Not like the southern border, but they're coming in the Canadian border a lot. And drugs are pouring in. Almost as importantly, drugs are pouring in, maybe more importantly.
Adding to Trump's broad list of complaints, he is also criticizing trade deficits, though he exaggerated the numbers, roughly doubling them to make his point.
We're subsidizing Canada to the tune of over $100 billion a year. We're subsidizing Mexico for almost $300 billion. If we're going to subsidize them, let them become a state.
That becoming a state comment is now a recurring theme. It follows what was interpreted as a joke during the Mar-a-Lago dinner, where Trump said Canada can be the 51st state if tariffs destroy the economy, and after this post on Trump's social media platform. There's nothing to suggest Trump is serious about that, but those who know him say he's dead serious about tariffs.
I think one of the things that people around the world know about Donald Trump is that he will follow through with things like this.
Trump also offered fresh insight into his broader foreign policy plans, warning Ukraine should probably expect less U.S. support while remaining non-committal on NATO.
They're paying their bills, and if I think they're treating us fairly, the answer is absolutely, I'd stay with NATO.
But if not, you would consider the possibility of
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
What's getting the most attention in the U.S. is Trump's promise to pardon January 6th rioters and his desire for revenge against the lawmakers who investigated him.
For what they did, honestly, they should go to jail.
Trump says he's not going to direct authorities to investigate his political opponents. Instead, it will be up to his new attorney general and FBI director. But they have been clear about going after Trump's opponents. Now, Trump made a lot of headlines in that interview, and Ottawa has some very distinct interpretations. I'm told what Trump said matches what he said privately at Mar-a-Lago. According to a senior Canadian government source, the Canadian strategy remains the same. The Canada-U.S. Cabinet Committee will meet Monday, and the Prime Minister plans to schedule another call with premiers to hold an update sometime this week. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Closer to home, a big weekend for outdoor enthusiasts as many Ontario resorts welcome back snowboarders and skiers for the season. Tyreek Reed takes us to a few that are no longer relying on Mother Nature for the perfect weather conditions.
It looks like this year with the forecasts and the temperatures that are in place, we should be wide open for the holidays.
Those are words that snowboarders and skiers have waited all year long to hear, many finally returning to the slopes. And despite some mild temperatures and dry conditions across the province, ski destinations like the Horseshoe Resort say this year they're relying on their own snow to keep things running.
We have, from one end of the resort to the other, all new semi-automated snowmaking system, and it really allows us to make a lot of snow in a short period of time.
He says without the machines, the resort wouldn't have opened as early as it did because of warm temperatures the province has seen, which has left some businesses preparing for worst-case scenarios, even if they're pricey.
We're in the second year of a multi-year, multi-million-dollar investment in snowmaking. So our operators have done a lot of what you see behind me. We have twice as many snow guns on that trail, and we're building that up across the resort. So yeah, it's all about being efficient and responsive to what Mother Nature does hand us each winter.
She says the past 2 seasons were challenging for ski resorts across the province, but says this year weather conditions could finally see business return to normal.
I think we're looking at the forecast and listening to every meteorologist who will talk to us. And grateful to hear that with a La Nina winter, we're going to see a lot of natural snowfall and those cold temperatures where we can be making snow. So it's going to pay off being a skier or a rider this season.
And a snowy season also means a busy one.
We're out here and we're skiing, and conditions are pretty good for preseason, and it's any bonus day before Christmas is awesome.
Yeah, so much fun, great activity.
Yeah, come ski and snowboard, have fun, yeah.
Businesses say if people want to ski this winter, then it's best to book a trip soon while there are still spots left. Tyreek Reed, CBC News, Toronto.
Time for our first look at the forecast. Nice to see people out there enjoying a beautiful day on the slopes. Sophia is here with us, but we're also hearing about this freezing rain warning for parts of the region too.
Shannon, yeah, the ski hills got a great early season base last week with all those persistent squalls that we saw. If you are heading out to the hills for Monday morning, though, a heads up, we're watching a messy mixed bag system that will bring in a mix of snow, freezing rain, and rain, perfectly timed for the Monday morning commute. Yes, that rain coming in, but this cold air really battling it out for supremacy. Cold air on the ground level, freezing that rain on contact, especially for those of you Georgian shores down towards Coburg and Belleville, north and east of the GTA. A couple hours of ice accretion and buildup is possible to make matters worse. Some of those areas could then see a dusting of snow on top of that freezing rain, leading to some pretty treacherous travel. Areas on the hook for freezing rain include Orillia, Peterborough, Port Perry, even the Dundalk Highlands and the Georgian shores up towards Parry Sound. It'll be hard to tell how long that ice stays on the ground before the eventual warm-up comes. For some of you, it could be until the evening hours. South and west of the city, this is mostly a rain event, and towards the north, this is mostly snow. Coming up, though, in the long range, we'll talk more about a bit of a warm-up for Tuesday before more plunging cold later on in the work week. Shannon.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Sophia. This cold and flu season already packing quite the punch. Recent data from Public Health Ontario reporting high numbers of both walking pneumonia and whooping cough. The Provincial Health Agency in its latest report said the number of whooping cough cases in Ontario this year between January and November reached a level that hasn't been seen in 17 years. When it comes to walking pneumonia, Public Health reporting the highest number of cases since it began tracking the data in 2019. So lots to unpack, but there is some good news to share. Joining me now is Dr. Jeffrey Pernica. He's a pediatric infectious disease physician at McMaster Children's Hospital in Hamilton. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
We'll touch on whooping cough in a moment, but we actually want to start with RSV. This is something you've been watching closely. What are you seeing so far this season?
Thank you so much for asking about that. RSV has always been the most important pathogen, the most important germ affecting young children, and is one of the primary drivers of hospitalization, especially in the winter season. Thankfully, this year, the RSV season is starting a little bit slower, but it is going now. So we are seeing mounting numbers of cases, both in McMaster Children's Hospital and across the province of Ontario. I'm glad you asked me about that, because this year, for the first time ever, all of the infants born in Ontario have access to a new prevention product to reduce the risk of RSV disease. I should have said that all infants born in 2024 and who are going to be less than a year when they get it are eligible for nirsevimab, this new product that is available to prevent against RSV infection.
We also want to switch gears and talk about whooping cough, because we mentioned some of that data from Public Health Ontario and the numbers being up. But you and I were chatting earlier, and you said cases in your region are starting to ease. But this is another one that can hit kids particularly hard, and it is preventable.
Yeah, no, it is good to highlight that the Public Health Ontario report reveals that the case numbers of whooping cough peaked in the summer. But exactly as you say, the age group most at risk from whooping cough is really the young infants. Older children and adults can absolutely have respiratory symptoms and prolonged cough. They used to call it the 100-day cough, but young infants can die from pertussis, right? And so it's really critically important that pregnant people get the whooping cough vaccine in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. This enables them to pass on important antibodies to the fetus, which will prevent them from getting severe pertussis disease in early infancy.
Dr. Pernica, we're almost out of time, but we are heading into holiday season. I'm thinking of concerts at schools, family get-togethers. Any advice for people as they're heading out in group settings over the holidays?
Yeah, I hope that everybody has a great holiday season. I mean, this year I would recommend what doctors have recommended every year, right? Wash your hands before you eat or after blowing your nose. Anybody who feels unwell, fever and respiratory symptoms, please don't go to holiday gatherings or work or school for the few days that we have left. And really just do your best to keep the most vulnerable among us, right? The young infants, those people who are immune compromised, elderly adults, away from people who have obvious respiratory symptoms.
Really good reminders this time of year. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your insight.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's Dr. Jeffrey Pernica. He's a pediatric infectious disease physician at McMaster Children's Hospital in Hamilton. New data from Statistics Canada shows the unemployment rate in Ontario is up 7.6% in November. That's the highest mark since January 2022.
We've never seen so many people send out so many resumes with so little response. So just a lot of desperation and concern.
Ontario's Minister of Economic Development called on the Bank of Canada to further lower interest rates to help stimulate the job market. The Bank of Canada is making its next interest rate announcement this Wednesday. We're heading into a quick break. Sophia's back in 3 minutes with your full forecast. Nathan Phillips Square is celebrating its 60th anniversary this weekend. A skating party with a live DJ was held to mark the occasion. And of course, the cavalcade of lights lit up the square with some holiday magic. We spoke with people there today, ready to celebrate this holiday season.
Well, we're looking forward to spending time with family and friends and enjoying Christmas.
What are you looking forward to most of the holidays?
Okay, let's go.
What are you looking forward to most of the holidays? Playing in the snow
looking forward to the holidays. Like we're just spending time with my family, and then this is our first time here in Toronto, so we're just excited.
The Cavalcade of Lights is running now through January 7th. Sophia is joining us again, a gorgeous warm day for Escape, but we've got this freezing rain warning. You saying it's coming just in time for the Monday morning commute.
Well, all in all, it was a pretty festive looking weekend out there, especially Saturday with that light snow falling. Today it felt more like March. Some sunshine came out, the melt was on, and the slush was out as a lot of that snowpack has either disappeared or has really heightened the river levels, especially around parts of cottage country. Next couple days, though, is a real mixed bag. We have this system coming in on Monday, and it doesn't really know what to do with all the temperatures at play, battling between that cold and warmer air. A couple hours of freezing rain in the crosshairs. It'll be snow, followed by freezing rain, followed by rain, all for the Monday morning commute. It's all wrapped up by the Monday afternoon hours, but for some of these areas, this freezing rain could linger into your afternoon and evening hours if that cold sticks around long enough. Unfortunately, it could be followed by a dusting of snow as well. Cold enough in the north towards Sudbury for upwards of 10 centimeters of snow. Snow towards Bracebridge and Barry's Bay as well through Monday. And then by Tuesday, things warm up quite nicely. And in fact, for Monday, south and west of the city, you're actually quite mild with that southerly flow. Double digits in Windsor for Monday afternoon. Straight rain event for those of you there. And back to Monday for a second. Look at the temperature contrast. -8 in Timmins, while it's +10 in Windsor. You can really see the battle zone between those two air masses. Can you see who wins out by Tuesday? Yes, it's the milder air when we're all above seasonal. Towards the south, you're at the freezing mark. In the Sioux, watch the U-turn though. Can you tell where the northwest flow comes in on Thursday? These cool overnight lows stick around right into Friday and the weekend before maybe another short dose of lake effect snow. So yes, the countdown to Christmas is on, but we're also counting up the snowfall totals. It looks to be a pretty promising early start to the season. Watch that cool temperature move in Thursday into Friday, feeling like the minus double digits. Shannon.
Bit of a roller coaster for us. Thanks, Sophia. That's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. As we say goodbye, we want to take you back to Nathan Phillips Square. The Cavalcade of Lights is on, the annual celebration lighting up the square. Stay safe out there tomorrow morning. Sounds like a messy commute. We'll see you again next weekend.